They say a mother's love never asks for anything in return. But what happens when that love is met with silence? When her voice becomes something only the walls hear back? I'm Norma, and this is the story of Clara, a mother who never stopped loving, and her son Ethan, who took a little too long to realize what love truly means. Clara's mornings always began with the soft sound of her kettle and the golden light creeping through lace curtains. Her little cottage stood at the edge of a sleepy town, where every corner held a memory. The walls were filled with framed photographs: Ethan's first steps, his school awards, his bright smile on every birthday. Sometimes she'd stop while dusting and trace his face with her finger, smiling to herself as if she could still hear his laughter echoing through the halls. Ethan had been her whole world since the day he was born. He had curious eyes, always wide with wonder, and tiny hands that clung to hers like they'd never let go. When he was little, he followed her everywhere, into the garden, to the market, even when she hung laundry on the line. "Mom, why does the sun follow us?" he once asked. She had laughed and said, "Because it loves us just as much as I love you." Life back then was simple. Warm dinners, bedtime stories, and shared dreams whispered in the dark. Every night before she turned off the lamp, Clara would look at her sleeping boy and whisper, "Please let him never drift too far from home." But life has its own way of answering prayers. Years passed like pages turning in a forgotten book. Ethan grew taller, busier, more impatient. The day he left for college, Clara tried to be strong. She helped him pack his clothes, folded perfectly as always, pretending not to notice the tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "You'll call me, won't you?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled, hugged her tightly, and promised, "Every Sunday, Mom. I promise." And for a while he did. Sundays were their ritual. They talked for hours about his new classes, new friends, and the small city apartment that he called home. She'd listen with pride, always ending the call with, "I love you, son." He'd reply, "Love you too, Mom." But as months turned into years, the calls grew shorter, and then less frequent. Work got busier, life got faster, and somehow the silence between them began to stretch. Still, every Sunday Clara made 2 cups of tea. One for herself, one for him. The second cup always went cold. She never complained. When neighbors asked about him, she'd smile proudly and say, "Oh, he's doing well. Just busy, that's all." But every night before bed, she'd look at his photograph and whisper, "Don't forget me, my boy." One evening, after another quiet dinner for one, she sat at her kitchen table and reached for a notepad. Her hands trembled as she began to write. "Dear Ethan," she wrote, "I hope you're eating well. It's been cold lately, so wear your coat, will you? The garden's blooming early this year. You always loved the red roses. Love, Mom." She folded the letter carefully, slipped it into an envelope, and then stopped. What if she sounded needy? What if he was too busy to read it? She placed the letter in a drawer instead. The next week she wrote another one, then another. Weeks turned into months, and the drawer quietly filled with dozens of letters, all beginning with "Dear Ethan," and ending with "Love, Mom." None of them ever sent. Sometimes she would pick one up and read it aloud, pretending he was there, listening to her. Her voice would soften at the end. "I love you," she'd whisper to the empty room. Then came the birthday she spent alone. The rain hadn't stopped all day. She baked herself a small cake, just the way Ethan liked it, vanilla with thin layers of cream. She placed 2 candles on top, lighting one for herself and one for him. She waited by the phone, smiling every time it buzzed, only to realize it wasn't him. Midnight came, and the phone stayed silent. She blew out the candles softly and said, "Maybe next year." Ethan wasn't unkind. He loved his mother, but life had pulled him into its endless current. Meetings, bills, responsibilities, there was always something. Sometimes guilt pricked at him, but he'd tell himself she understood. After all, mothers always do. "I'll visit soon," he'd say. And soon became next week, and next week became next year. Until one afternoon, while sitting at his desk, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Mr. Harris." the voice on the line said. "This is Dr. Bennett from Pinewood Clinic. It's about your mother." His world fell silent. He drove for hours that night, the road blurring through his tears. By the time he reached the hospital, dawn was breaking. The scent of antiseptic filled the hallway as he stepped into her room. Clara lay there, frail but peaceful. Her hands, once so steady, trembled slightly as she turned toward him. "Ethan," she whispered, her lips curling into a faint smile. "You came." He sat by her side, his heart aching. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have been here sooner." She reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You're here now," she said softly. "That's all that matters." He stayed with her all night. For the first time in years, he didn't check his phone once. He just sat there, holding her hand, listening to her breathe. The machines hummed gently beside them, and in that quiet, something in his heart began to heal. Weeks later, Clara was discharged. Ethan decided to take time off work to stay with her. He cooked badly, burned half the meals, but she laughed every time, saying, "You've improved since college." They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Felt like life had given them another chance. One afternoon, while tidying up the house, Ethan opened a drawer he didn't remember. Inside, he found a bundle of letters tied with a faded pink ribbon. The envelopes were yellowed at the edges, each one marked in her delicate handwriting. "To Ethan." He sat down, slowly untying the ribbon. The first letter began, "Dear Ethan, I hope you're happy. I know you're busy, but that's okay. I just wanted to say that I'm proud of you. Always." He read another and another, until the words blurred through his tears. "I miss you. Don't work too hard." The roses bloomed again. Each one was a moment she had wanted to share with him but never could. When Clara walked in and saw him sitting there, surrounded by those letters, she smiled gently. "I was saving them for the day you'd come home," she said. He stood up, tears streaming down his face, and hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry for all the letters I never wrote back." She smiled into his shoulder. "Then start now." He nodded, and that night, for the first time, Ethan wrote to his mother. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The letter was short, but it was full of everything he'd left unsaid. "Dear Mom, thank you for never giving up on me. I love you more than I ever said." She read it quietly, tears glistening in her eyes. "This one," she whispered, "I'll keep close." And from that day on they built new memories. Simple ones but real. Evening walks, shared dinners, late-night talks by the window. The kind of moments that fill the silence with love again. Time moved quietly after that. Ethan stayed for weeks, fixing little things around the house that had waited too long. Broken drawers, a loose garden gate, the old clock that had stopped ticking years ago. Clara would sit by the window, watching him work. Her heart full of something she hadn't felt in years, peace. Every evening, they'd share tea on the porch as the sun melted behind the hills. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. They just sat there, letting silence speak for them. One evening, as the sky turned a soft pink, Clara said, "You know, when you were little, you used to tell me you'd build me a house on the moon so I could watch the stars up close." Ethan laughed softly. "I remember that. I even drew a picture of it." "I kept it," she said, smiling. "It's still in my drawer, under the old recipe book." He looked at her, his heart twisting with a mix of love and guilt. "You kept everything, didn't you?" "Only the things that mattered," she said. That night, after she went to bed, Ethan sat alone in the living room, flipping through an old photo album. The pages were worn, the corners bent, but every picture told a story. A lifetime of love, captured in moments he had once taken for granted. He realized then that love wasn't something loud or demanding. It was quiet, patient, and steady, just like his mother. The next morning, Clara woke up early to the smell of pancakes. Ethan stood in the kitchen, wearing her old apron, struggling to flip them without breaking them apart. She laughed so hard she nearly cried. "You're worse than your father was," she teased. He smiled. "Then I'm doing something right." Days turned into weeks, and their home began to feel alive again. Ethan started a small garden with her, planting the same red roses she'd mentioned in her letters. Every evening, he'd water them while she watched from the porch. "They'll bloom soon," she'd say. "Roses always do, even after the harshest winters." But one morning, the sunlight didn't seem as warm. Clara didn't come to breakfast. When Ethan knocked on her door, she didn't answer. He found her sitting in her chair, her hands folded gently in her lap, her face calm, as if she had simply fallen asleep. On the table beside her was a letter, the last one she'd ever write. His name was written on it in her familiar, graceful handwriting. With trembling hands, he opened it. "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I've gone where pain can't reach me anymore. Please don't cry, my love. I've had a full life, filled with laughter, memories, and most of all, you. You gave my world meaning, even in the quiet years. Every time the phone rang, I hoped it was you. And when it wasn't, I still smiled because I knew you were out there living. That was enough for me. Don't carry guilt in your heart, Ethan. The past is just a story we tell ourselves. What matters is what we do next. Promise me you'll live fully, love deeply, and when you see the roses bloom, know that I'm right there with you. Love always and forever. Mom." The tears fell silently. Ethan sat there for hours, holding her hand one last time. The room was quiet but not empty. It was filled with everything she had left behind. Love, forgiveness, warmth. Weeks passed. The garden bloomed brighter than ever before. The red roses stood tall, kissed by the morning sun. Every time the wind blew, Ethan could almost hear her humming softly, like she used to while cooking. He started visiting the local community center where elderly mothers gathered to write letters to their children living abroad. Ethan volunteered to help them read, write, and send those letters. Every time he sealed an envelope, he smiled, thinking, "This is what love looks like when it never gives up." One evening as he walked home, the sky turned golden again, the same shade it used to be when he and his mother shared tea on the porch. He whispered, "You were right, Mom. Roses do bloom after winter." He stopped by the garden, touched one of the flowers gently, and smiled. "This time I'll write first." He went inside, sat at the same table where she used to write, and took out a piece of paper. His handwriting was shaky at first, but the words flowed from his heart. "Dear Mom, I'm doing well. I started something new, something that would make you proud. I still make your pancakes every Sunday, though they never taste quite the same. The garden's beautiful, Mom. The roses bloom just like you said they would. I talk to them sometimes. It helps me feel close to you. Thank you for teaching me what love really means. Forever your son, Ethan." He placed the letter on her favorite chair, beside her framed photograph. The soft candlelight flickered across her smiling face. And then, just before turning out the light, Ethan whispered, "Good night, Mom." The room felt warm, almost alive. Outside, the roses swayed in the night breeze, their petals glistening under the moonlight. Somewhere between the rustling leaves and the distant hum of the wind, it almost sounded like a mother's voice saying, "Good night, my son." And maybe it was.